Welcome back to the for loop, and today what I want to go over is I want to keep going through this class and just continue to learn how a computer thinks and how the class or object, as we're calling it, basketball for example, how it works and how it's organized. So what I want to go over today, if we have enough time, and I think we can get through it, is I want to talk about getter setters and constructor, and we'll see if we have enough time for both of them. But they kind of work together, so it's tough to learn about one and not the other. So I'm just going to start with the getter setters. And so getter setters are methods. So I'm just going to make some notes along with what we have already here. So methods, you might hear them as methods, functions, subs, essentially anything that does work to your object. So the getter setters are specific methods, and what they do, and they're kind of self-explanatory, they either get one of your properties or they set one of your properties. So in this case, we have two properties. We'll have a getter and setter for each. Most times you do have a getter and setter for each property, and actually when you set up properties in some language, it automatically generates a getter setter for you. Sometimes you just want setters. Very rarely, I can't think of a situation, but you might just want getters. Most of the time, just assume you want a getter setter for each method, or for each property, sorry. And I'll just kind of show you what they look like. So you'll have your function declaration. So public, let's see, getter setters are generally private, I believe. I can't remember if they're public or private. Who cares? Let's just go on. So let's go public get color, and this is going to get, so it's going to return your color. And most times you'll have to tell the computer what you're returning. So are you returning an int or a number, which is an int? Are you returning a word or a sentence or a paragraph? That's a string. In this case, we're returning a word. So this is going to return red, orange, blue, yellow, whatever, whatever you set it to. And that actually brings me to what I should have written first was a setter. You always want to write your setters before you write your getters. I'm sorry, you want to call your setters before you call your getters. And the reason is because if you call get color and you haven't set the color yet, then the computer doesn't know what color your basketball is. So if you ask it for the color, it's going to return a null or a blank, or it's like if you go up to someone and say hi and they don't say hi back, you know that feeling? I call that feeling null or nothing. So the computer is going to return null because it doesn't know because you didn't set it. So whenever you set, these parentheses are for parameters, and what parameters means is what we're going to pass to the computer. So if you just say set my color, and then it says, okay, what do you want to set the color to? Color equals what? And then it freezes because it doesn't know what you want to set the color to. And you could go in here and you could say, oh, red. But then every time you called set color, it would call it red. And that isn't good, because you want your functions to be as reusable as possible. That means when you want to call it to set it for blue, call it to set it for orange, call it to set it for yellow, you don't want to write 4,000 different methods so you can set it to 4,000 different colors. What you want to do is put a parameter in the parentheses, and this is going to be string color. Sure, that sounds good. Now all you do is you say, that's not good syntax. We're just going to call our string C, and C stands for color. So we're going to say color equals C. Now the property color gets set to C, so when we call it later in our main method, we'll just have to say basketball, because we have to say what it is, dot set color, and then we'll pass in red. Now it sets it to red, and We can do it again, but let's say this time we want to set it to blue. There you go. It's completely reusable. We don't have to write any new functions. One line of code takes care of it all. Good deal. All right, so you'll also want to write one for public set air pressure. This one instead is going to take an int, and we'll just call it I, just for simplicity. And then all you'll say is air pressure equals I. And as you can see, I'm just doing camel case. Obviously, I didn't name my property that way at the beginning, so I'll just rename it. So I think that's less confusing when I name it this way. So there's our setters, no big deal. Now we want to write our getters, and I've already started my getter here. Like I said, we have get color. It doesn't take in a parameter because it's just going to return the property's value. And then we have to tell it what it is that it's returning. So now we would just return color, and it's going to go up here and it says return color, and then it goes and finds the value for color, and it goes down here and it says, well, you set it to red, then you set it to blue, and now we're going to call this get color. Okay, and so what it's gonna read this and say set it to red. Okay, now set it to blue. Okay, get the color, and it goes in here and it says, well, the color was just set to blue via this set color method. This set color. So in this case, blue is passed to C, so C is equivalent to blue. So color set to blue, and then when you get the color, it returns the color. In this case, it's going to return blue. So what you'll see on the monitor is just blue. Perfect. Now we also want a get air pressure, and this is pretty much the same thing, except for it's going to return an int, and you have your return air pressure property. No big deal. Alright, so that's a pretty quick run through of a setter getter method, and I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off and make another one for constructor, and maybe I can fit methods in there because methods we've kind of already covered. These are all methods. They're just really specific special types of methods that go along with our constructor. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and cut the video off. So don't forget to subscribe to the For Loop, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.